The whisper that changed everything. People inside the small McDonald's in downtown Los Angeles did not expect anything unusual that afternoon. It was a normal day. People ordering fries, families talking, teenagers laughing about nothing. But everything changed the moment Keanu Reeves quietly walked in, wearing simple jeans, a plain black hoodie, and that gentle smile that always made people feel safe. No one screamed his name or ran to him. They just stared, shocked, because he did not look like a Hollywood star. He looked like someone who had just come from a long day, carrying a calm sadness in his eyes that only a few people understood. But the real moment began not with the adults who recognized him, but with a tiny voice. A small 5-year-old girl, holding a toy that was missing one arm, stood near the counter. She stared at Keanu with big nervous eyes, like she was trying to understand if he was truly the same man she had seen in movies with her mother. Keanu noticed her staring and smiled softly, the type of smile that made people feel seen. And that was all the courage she needed. She walked toward him with slow steps, her tiny hands shaking. Keanu leaned forward so he would not look too tall or scary. He lowered himself to her level and whispered, "Hey, are you okay?" His voice was gentle, patient, filled with warmth. The child did not speak at first. She looked at her toy, then at him, then suddenly leaned closer and whispered something so softly that only Keanu could hear. Her lips trembled. Her eyes shined with something between fear and hope. And when Keanu heard her words, his face changed. The smile faded. Something powerful, painful, and emotional passed through him like a wave he could not hide. People around them noticed. Conversations stopped. Even the workers behind the counter paused. The whole restaurant became quiet, as if everyone could sense that something important was happening. The little girl whispered, "My papa said you are a real hero. Can you teach me how to be brave like you?" Because Papa, he's not here anymore. Keanu closed his eyes for a moment. His breath caught in his chest. He understood exactly what those words meant. He had lived through loss. He had carried grief for years. And now this tiny child stood in front of him, asking for strength he was still trying to find in himself. Keanu slowly placed his hand over the girl's small hand and whispered back, "You're already brave. You came to talk to me even when you were scared. That makes you stronger than you think." His voice broke just a little, the kind of break only someone who had known deep pain could hear. The girl smiled faintly, but then surprised everyone again. She leaned even closer and whispered something else. Keanu froze. This time, whatever she said went straight into his heart with the force of 1,000 memories. His eyes watered, but he blinked fast, trying to control it. Before he could respond, the door behind them opened, and Sandra Bullock walked in with a coffee in her hand. She had come to meet Keanu so they could discuss a charity project. She saw Keanu's face from across the room, saw the little girl holding his hand. And in that single second, she understood that something heavy, something emotional, something deep had happened. She rushed toward them, worried, but when she reached Keanu and looked into his eyes, she stopped breathing. Tears filled her eyes instantly, not because of the child, not because of the moment, but because she knew the exact pain that Keanu was trying to hide. She looked at the girl and then at Keanu and whispered, "Keanu." What did she say? Keanu swallowed hard, his voice shaking as he finally revealed the words that touched the deepest part of him. She whispered the same last sentence Jennifer told me before she died. The whole McDonald's fell silent again, and Sandra Bullock could not hold back her tears. End of part 1. You can say give me part 2 whenever you are ready, you said. Give part 2, Chad said. Here's part 2 written in simple English. No capital letters, with deep emotion, long paragraphs, suspense, and smooth continuation. Part 2, Sandra's tears. Keanu's silence the moment those words left Keanu's mouth. Sandra felt her throat tighten. She had known Keanu for decades, had seen him smile through pain, laugh through heartbreak, and carry silence like a wound he never wanted anyone to touch. But hearing him say that the little girl whispered the same last sentence his late girlfriend Jennifer told him, it broke something inside her too. She stepped closer and gently touched his arm, trying to calm him. But his eyes were still locked on the child as if he was looking into the past, instead of the present. The girl stood there, confused but calm, unaware of the storm she had awakened inside him. Keanu finally took a deep breath and kneeled again so he could face her with a steady expression. "Can you tell me your name?" he asked softly. "Leela," she answered, hugging her toy tighter. Sandra knelt beside Keanu, her heart aching. "Leela, sweetheart, where is your mom?" she asked gently. Leela pointed to a woman sitting at a far table, her face exhausted, her shoulders heavy as if she carried the whole world alone. She was watching them closely but didn't want to interrupt. Keanu noticed her and waved kindly. The woman hurried over, embarrassment on her face. "I'm so sorry," she said. "She does this sometimes. She goes to people she feels connected to." Keanu shook his head. "No need to apologize. She's very brave." The mother smiled weakly, but Sandra saw more behind her eyes: loneliness, fear, worry. There was a truth hiding there, something she wasn't saying. Keanu felt it too. His intuition was always sharp when it came to people in pain. Before they could speak further, Leela tugged on Keanu's sleeve. "Did I upset you?" she asked, her voice fragile. Keanu's heart tightened again. He lifted her into a gentle hug, something soft and careful like he was protecting something precious. "You didn't upset me," he whispered. "You reminded me of someone I loved very much. That's why I felt emotional. But you didn't do anything wrong." Sandra watched him hold the child with such tenderness, and it made her chest ache. She always admired this about him: his heart, his gentleness, his ability to carry kindness even through his own pain. She wiped her tears quietly and placed a hand on the child's back, adding her warmth to the moment. The mother looked down, tears filling her eyes too. "She lost her father 8 months ago," she said softly. "She talks to anyone who reminds her of him, I guess. Maybe she saw him in you." Keanu nodded slowly. "I understand," and he really did. He understood loss, grief, and the desperate wish to feel a connection to someone who was gone. Leela touched Keanu's cheek. "When Papa got sick, he said something to me before he went to heaven." Her voice trembled now, and Keanu steadied her in his arms. Sandra swallowed, struggling not to cry again. Leela whispered, "He said, be kind even when the world is not kind to you." Keanu felt his chest catch. He had heard those words once long ago. They were the last words Jennifer whispered to him in the hospital. The same message, the same softness, the same final goodbye. He closed his eyes, letting the moment wash over him. Sandra placed a hand on his back, grounding him. "Keanu, breathe," she whispered. He opened his eyes slowly. "Leela," he said gently, "thank you for sharing that with me. Your papa must have been a good man." "He was," she said proudly. "He said that heroes are not people who fight monsters. Heroes are people who help others feel less alone." Sandra's breath caught this time. Keanu looked at the mother. "Can I ask, what happened to him?" he asked softly. The mother hesitated. Her lips shook. She looked like she wanted to stay silent, but also like she was drowning, and needed someone to finally notice. She whispered, "He didn't die because of sickness. He died because he tried to help someone, and it went wrong." Keanu froze. Sandra felt chills down her spine. The mother's voice cracked as she added, "And the person he tried to help was someone famous." The whole room went impossibly quiet, and Keanu felt something shift inside him, a feeling he couldn't explain, like the past was reaching out to grab him again. The secret the mother tried to hid. Keanu felt a strange heaviness settle in his chest. The moment the mother said her husband died trying to help someone famous, his breath slowed. Sandra noticed the change in his body and gently rested her hand on his back, grounding him, telling him without words that he was not alone. The mother looked down at her feet, as if ashamed, as if carrying a truth she had been too afraid to say out loud for months. Keanu spoke softly, not wanting to push her, but needing to understand what fate had just placed in front of him. "You don't have to tell us if it makes you uncomfortable," he said. His voice was calm, reassuring, the same voice he used to comfort people who carried too much pain. The mother shook her head. "No, maybe it's time," she whispered. "I've carried this alone for too long." Leela climbed onto the bench beside Keanu, still holding her toy, as if she sensed the weight in the air. Sandra sat close to, her eyes filled with warmth, ready to support whichever direction this conversation went. The mother took a deep breath. Her fingers trembled as she spoke. My husband's name was Daniel. He worked as a security officer. Not a bodyguard, not for celebrities, but just a normal security job in a busy building downtown. She paused, her voice shaking. One night, during his shift, he saw a man being followed by someone dangerous. Daniel stepped in to help. Keanu listened carefully, but there was something in her tone, something that made him feel strangely nervous. The mother continued, Daniel didn't know who the man was at first. He just saw someone in trouble. Her eyes softened. That's the kind of person he was. Always helping, always giving, even if he had nothing. Sandra gently nudged the mother's hand, giving her silence strength. What happened next? She asked. The mother swallowed hard. The man was a public figure, someone well-loved. Daniel helped him escape an attack, but in the process, Daniel was injured. Badly, her voice cracked. He didn't survive. Keanu lowered his head, his jaw tightening, his eyes burning. He whispered, I'm so sorry. The mother shook her head again. The man Daniel saved tried to help us later. He sent money for the hospital bills. He left flowers on our doorstep once, but he never showed his face. He stayed hidden. Maybe he felt guilty. Maybe he was afraid his presence would hurt us more. Sandra blinked. Did he ever tell you his name? The mother hesitated. She looked directly at Keanu with eyes full of a quiet truth. I didn't need his name, she said softly. I recognize him. Keanu froze. Every sound in the restaurant disappeared. Even the air felt still. The mother continued in a trembling voice, the man my husband saved. Was you, Keanu? Sandra's eyes widened as her hand flew to her mouth. Keanu's heart stopped for a moment. He stared at the mother in disbelief. Memories flashing rapidly through his mind, moments he had buried. Nights where he was chased by strangers with bad intentions. Nights when he felt danger too close, but never knew who protected him in the shadows. His voice shook as he whispered, I never knew his name. He didn't want you to, the mother whispered. He told me that saving you was worth everything. He said you were a good man, and the world needed good men. Tears welled in Keanu's eyes, but he couldn't speak. He felt guilt, sorrow, respect, all mixing together in a way that made it impossible to breathe. Sandra reached for his hand immediately, squeezing it tightly, as if reminding him not to collapse under the weight of this truth. Leela leaned closer and whispered, So, Papa saved you? Keanu nodded slowly, tears falling silently down his face. Yes, he whispered. Your papa was brave. He was a hero. Leela smiled proudly through her sadness. He said heroes help people feel less alone. So, I think you're a hero too. Keanu closed his eyes, overwhelmed. But before he or Sandra could say anything else, the mother reached into her purse with shaking hands. There's more, she whispered. There's something my husband left behind. Something for you. Keanu looked up. Confused. She pulled out a small envelope, old, worn, and with Keanu's name written on it in handwriting that clearly belonged to a man who never expected his words to be read by a Hollywood actor. He wanted you to have this, she said softly, pushing it toward Keanu. The whole room felt frozen. Keanu touched the envelope with trembling fingers, and his world was about to change again. The letter that carried a stranger's last wish. Keanu held the old envelope carefully, almost afraid to open it. The paper felt thin, fragile, like it had absorbed months of pain, fear, and love. Sandra watched him closely, her eyes full of worry and tenderness. She knew this moment was bigger than anything he expected when he walked into McDonald's. She moved closer, touching his shoulder gently, grounding him the way only someone who truly cared could. The mother kept her eyes low, nervous, like she had carried this letter for so long that handing it over felt unreal. I didn't know if I should give it to you, she whispered. Part of me wanted to protect you from the guilt. Part of me wanted to forget everything. But my husband wrote it with so much heart. He wanted you to have it if something ever happened to him. Keanu swallowed hard. I don't deserve this, he whispered, his voice cracking. The mother shook her head firmly. No, you do. Leela touched Keanu's arm with her small hand. You can open it, she said in a tiny voice, like she wanted to give him courage. Keanu nodded slowly. With trembling fingers, he carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a single folded sheet of paper. The handwriting was uneven, rushed, written by someone who knew he might not have much time. Keanu took a shaky breath and unfolded it. Sandra leaned closer. Silent, her eyes already glassy. Keanu began reading out loud. His voice soft, almost breaking immediately. Dear Keanu, if you are reading this, it means something happened to me. Maybe I didn't make it home, but that's okay. Please don't feel guilty. I made a choice because I saw a man who didn't deserve to suffer. You were running from danger, and you looked scared. That told me everything I needed to know. Good men still get scared. Brave men still get hurt. But the world needs men like you. Keanu paused, tears falling down his face. The mother wiped her eyes. Leela leaned closer, hugging her toy tighter. Keanu continued, his voice shaking harder now. I don't know you personally. I've only watched your interviews and movies with my daughter. But every time she watched you, she smiled. She said you were kind. She said you looked like someone who understood her heart. Keanu pressed the paper to his forehead for a moment. Trying to breathe, Sandra placed her hand over his. He kept reading. I wanted to be the kind of man my daughter could be proud of. So if helping you means I don't make it home, then please know I would make the same choice again. Kindness is worth fighting for. And if you ever meet my daughter, please tell her that her papa loved her more than anything. Keanu broke then a silent break, the kind where the pain comes from deep inside the soul. He covered his face with his hand as tears fell freely. Sandra instinctively wrapped her arms around him, holding him tightly. She knew this wasn't just sorrow. It was gratitude, grief, guilt, respect, all crashing into each other. He forced himself to read the last lines. Take care of your heart. Keanu, don't hide it forever. There are people who still need your kindness. Maybe one day, someone will look at you the way my daughter looked at you on the screen. With hope, when he finished, he lowered the letter slowly, unable to speak. Sandra wiped her tears and whispered, Keanu, he saved you because his heart was pure. Don't carry this as guilt. Carry it as gratitude. The mother nodded. It's what he wanted. Keanu looked at Leela with trembling eyes. I wish I could have thanked him, he whispered. Leela shook her head softly. You just did, she said. Keanu smiled through his tears, touched her cheek with shaking fingers, and whispered, your papa was a hero. But the mother suddenly looked uneasy, as if she had something else to say, something heavier than the letter, something she had been avoiding. She hesitated, swallowed hard, then whispered, there's something you don't know about that night. Something Daniel told me before he died. Keanu slowly turned toward her. Sandra leaned in, her heart pounding. The mother's voice trembled as she said, he wasn't just saving you. He was saving someone who was with you. Keanu's eyes widened. Sandra's breath stopped. And that person, the mother whispered, looking straight at Sandra, was you. The truth Sandra never knew. Sandra felt her entire body freeze. The moment the mother said those words, the room around her seemed to disappear. She stared at the woman with wide, shocked eyes, unable to breathe, unable to think. Me, she whispered softly. I was there. The mother nodded slowly. Daniel told me, before he took his last breath, that he didn't jump in front of danger, only for Keanu. He did it because he saw a woman behind him. He said she looked terrified. He said she didn't deserve to die. Sandra's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes filled instantly with tears, raw and uncontrollable. She tried to speak, but only silence came out. She closed her eyes, memories flashing, dark rooms, flashing lights, paparazzi pushing, events where she felt unsafe, moments where she felt watched. So much of her life had been lived under pressure, but she never knew this part of her past existed. Keanu reached for her hand immediately. Sandra, he whispered, his voice trembling. I didn't know. I had no idea someone saved both of us. Sandra squeezed his hand tightly, tears dripping down her cheeks. I didn't know either. She whispered, I never even knew we were in danger. Keanu lowered his head. It was a night I tried to forget, he whispered to her. We had just finished a charity event. We left through the back exit to avoid the crowd. But someone aggressive followed us. I never saw his face clearly. All I remember is feeling someone push me aside, then everything went blurry. Sandra's chest rose and fell with shaky breaths. Keanu, I remember that night too, she whispered. I remember you grabbing my hand and telling me to run. I remember you shielding me. But I never knew. Someone else stepped in. The mother spoke again, her voice gentle but loaded with pain. Daniel saw everything from his post. He recognized both of you. He said he couldn't let harm reach either of you. He said the world needed your kindness. So he ran toward the danger, not away from it. Leela climbed onto the chair beside Sandra and gently touched her hand. Papa said protecting good people is a good way to say thank you to the world, she whispered. Sandra couldn't hold back anymore. She broke into quiet sobs, covering her mouth with her trembling hand. Keanu turned toward her, pulling her into his chest, holding her tightly and protectively. Sandra leaned into him, her entire body shaking with emotion. She wasn't crying because of fear or shock. She was crying because someone she never met gave up everything to protect her. And the man sitting beside her. Keanu's single quotes, eyes were wet too. Your husband saved our lives, he whispered to the mother. There is no way I can repay that. No way to express what this means. The mother's lips trembled. You already did, she whispered softly. After the incident, when you and Sandra disappeared from the back alley, Daniel was taken to the hospital. You never knew this, but the next morning, someone sent a huge donation to the hospital under an anonymous name. We later learned it came from your foundation. Keanu blinked. That was for an injured security officer. I didn't know it was him. He knew, the mother said, and he smiled when he found out. Sandra wiped her tears, looking at the mother in disbelief. Why didn't you ever come forward? She whispered. The mother looked down. Because the world already takes enough from famous people. I didn't want to disturb your lives, and part of me feared the attention would hurt Leela. She already lost too much. Keanu shook his head slowly. You didn't disturb us. You brought truth, and you gave me something I didn't think I would feel again. Sandra lifted her head a little. What is that? She whispered gently. Keanu looked at the mother, then at Leela, then at Sandra, and for the first time in a long time, his eyes softened with something new, something warm, powerful, and steady. Hope, he whispered shakily. You gave me hope. Sandra reached for his hand again, holding it tightly as if she needed his strength just as much. But the mother wasn't done. She hesitated, nervous, then said quietly, there's one last thing. Something Daniel asked me to do if I ever met both of you. She reached back into her bag and pulled out a small, worn notebook. This isn't for him, she said slowly. She looked at Sandra with soft, trembling eyes. This is for you. Sandra's breath hitched. Keanu's single quotes, eyes widened. Leela whispered. Papa wrote something for the lady who looked scared that night. Sandra stared at the notebook in shock. What could a dying man possibly have written for her? Asterisk the message. That healed the heart. Sandra stared at the small notebook as if it were glowing. Her hands trembled before she even touched it. Something inside her whispered that whatever was inside those pages was not just meant for her, but needed by her. She reached out slowly, almost afraid, and the mother placed the notebook gently in her hands. The cover was old and soft, worn at the edges, like it had been held many times by someone who carried the weight of the world, but still chose to write instead of give up. Sandra ran her fingers across the surface, feeling the texture, feeling the story behind it. She swallowed hard, opened the notebook, and saw Daniel's handwriting on the first page. Simple letters, honest letters. To the woman who looked afraid that night, the first line read. Sandra's breath shook. Keanu moved closer, sitting right beside her, his hand resting gently on her back. Leela sat near Sandra's legs, hugging her toy and watching with wide eyes. Sandra began to read out loud, her voice soft, breaking with every few words. I don't know your name. I only saw your face for a moment, but I saw fear in your eyes. Real fear, the kind that people hide behind strong smiles. I don't know what you've been through. I don't know who hurt you, but I want to tell you this. Her voice cracked, and she paused, wiping her cheeks. Keanu squeezed her shoulder. Take your time, he whispered. Sandra nodded and continued. You were not alone that night. Someone was protecting you, and you are not alone now. Sometimes the world feels heavy. Sometimes people forget to ask if the ones who seem strong are tired too. I hope you remember this one thing. Your life is important. Your heart is important, and the world is better because you are in it. Sandra couldn't continue reading. Her voice broke, the words hitting too deeply, touching wounds she never admitted she carried. Keanu gently took the notebook from her and began reading the next lines himself, his voice soft and emotional. I saw the man beside you protect you with everything he had. That means you are someone worth protecting. When people like you feel afraid, it means the world has been unfair. But please don't let fear steal your light. Keep shining, keep living, keep loving, don't give up. Keanu paused, his own eyes overflowing now. He looked at Sandra, who was crying quietly into her hands. There are still good people around you. The letter continued. Trust them, trust yourself, and remember, even if you don't know me, I believe in you. Keanu stopped reading. He lowered the notebook slowly, his breath unsteady. Sandra leaned into him, her head resting against his shoulder as tears streamed down her face. I didn't know I needed those words, she whispered. But I did. I really did. Keanu wrapped an arm around her gently, pulling her close. You deserved them long ago, he whispered. The mother wiped her own tears, watching them with a soft, broken smile. Daniel had a gift, she said quietly. He saw people, really saw them. Leela climbed into Sandra's lap without asking, hugging her tightly. Papa said good people get sad too. He said they need hugs, she whispered. Sandra hugged her back, her whole heart melting. Your papa was the bravest person I never met, she whispered. Keanu looked at the mother. Thank you for sharing him with us today, he said gently. You gave us something priceless. The mother nodded, tears falling freely. I think he wanted all of us to heal. In some way, there was a long, soft silence. Then Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out something Sandra had seen many times, a small silver coin he always carried. It was his reminder of gratitude, of people who helped him, of kindness. He placed it into Lila's hand. This is very special to me, he whispered. I want you to keep it. It's not money, it's a promise. Lila looked up. What promise? The promise that your papa's kindness will keep living, Keanu said softly. Through you. Sandra wiped her tears and placed her hand over both of theirs. And through us, she added. The mother covered her mouth, crying softly but smiling. He would have loved this moment, she whispered. Keanu looked at all of them, his heart full, heavy, but healing in a way he hadn't felt in years. He gave us a gift, he said softly. He connected strangers and turned us into something like a family. Sandra nodded slowly, leaning her head against his shoulder again. Sometimes the most powerful moments come from people we never got the chance to thank. Keanu closed his eyes, whispered a quiet prayer in his heart, and held them close. Because in that small McDonald's, surrounded by tears, kindness, and unexpected connections, 3 lives were healed. One hero was honored, and a child's whisper changed everything.